Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Ninja Gaiden 3 Ultimate Ninja difficulty video walkthrough. This is the third part of day 7. This is the boss gauntlet that a lot of people are probably going to have difficulties with, because you're going to be taking on 2 of the spider tanks, and they're now white for some reason. Doesn't really make a difference, I don't think. But this is bad. This is really bad. Because there's the one in the background firing at you while you're fighting this one at all times, and then there's this one being an asshole. And the strategy is the exact same as every other spider tank you've fought. You're going to try and damage all the legs before you sever them. That way it doesn't start doing the ground EMP, like force field bullshit, shockwave. And unfortunately, as opposed to Razor's Edge, you can't just save Nimpo and hit these bosses with is it the True Dragon Nimpo, which takes off all the legs and then you can just execute them dead easy. On this game, it doesn't work that way, so you have to really earn it. And personally, I think the best way of doing this is to use the scythe, because the scythe is ridiculously powerful on this game. It's definitely the go-to button. You want to stay as mobile as you can, you want to get a few hits and you want to continue onwards. You need to bear in mind this is going to happen a lot, the quick time event to sever a leg, but do not do it unless you've damaged all of them, because you will trigger a much more difficult fight. Once all the legs are down, you want to use the light attack, which is the quick attack, to sever them, because that way it's going to put you into the animation and it's going to do it much quicker than it would be on the Y input. Then once you've killed one, you just need to try not to die so you can kill the other one and get the checkpoint. Something to bear in mind, there's a boss directly after this, and the boss after this has 3 phases. Whatever life you keep from this encounter, you will take into the next section. So I'm not saying you can't do the next section on low life, but the more life you have, the more room for error you will be afforded, which is common sense, but it's worth mentioning. So until we get to the second phase, or the next boss, because this is just me killing spider tanks, I'm going to continue talking on the quasi-religious tangent, how can anyone believe this notion, which is not too serious, not trying to offend anybody, just trying to air some inconsistencies and just irrational thoughts that I perceive. But we were talking about Moses and how Moses always gets a pretty good representation in traditional academic thinking, and I mean academic thinking in a very cloistered way. Secondary, primary school teachings of religious studies, which primary school teaches you the basics. Moses was a good guy, 10 Commandments, Noah had an ark, Jesus was this poor fella that got put on a cross and he had a sad face, all that kind of stuff. Secondary school takes it a little bit more advanced. You learn about pilgrimages, you learn about saints, you learn about... what else did I learn about in real RE? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If they'd talked about the good stuff, I might have enjoyed it more, but I didn't really learn much. And then if you take it at a higher level, you get to the good stuff, you get to the more objective stuff. Unless you're taking a course called Religious Apologetics, which is essentially you trying to rationalise the impossible. But Moses, for the most, ask anybody about Moses who aren't religious, and they'll probably say, he's the nice guy that went up the mountain and got the 10 Commandments. I don't think many people know of some of the stuff that Moses did. And this is not me trying to start a smear campaign against Moses. The guy's been around for a lot longer than I will be, or probably have significantly more influence than I'll ever have, which is not a bad thing, because I don't really think I'd envy him. But Moses did some bad shit. And I was mentioning on the previous video that when he came down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments, that the people who he declared to that he was going to go up and speak with God, because he didn't come back swiftly and it took a while to scale a mountain and find a deity and then steal some of his knowledge and inscribe it on a tablet, they had decided that because they were now afraid of this God that smited that smited Moses, that they were going to create a god, worship it, and thus get away from a grisly fate of this other benign and malevolent god. So what they did is they melted a bunch of gold down and they turned it into, I think it was a golden calf. So melted down gold, made a statue of an animal and started praying to it, which, as you know, is idolatry, which is something I discussed a couple of videos back, which is a crazy notion and a fun one to analyse. And Moses, I don't think Moses was too fucked about this. I don't think it pissed him off too much. But I'm just going to talk about the boss, guys, because I need to. So this is the boss of the level. He's pretty simple. You need to watch his arm, though. Depending on which way he puts his arm down will dictate which way the fire comes from it. If it touches you on this difficulty, you're going to have a bad time. So you want to avoid it. What will happen is when you damage him enough, or depending on what part of his body you stand, will dictate the moves he does. The main threat here is the missiles, because the missiles are a constant annoyance. They're like fleas. If you've ever watched any of those, aid videos where they show poor African children walking 90 miles to lakes that they should probably move closer to, they've always got flies on their face. That's what those missiles are like. They're a constant nuisance, so always try and be as mobile as possible. And once you take out the flame arm, you'll notice all I'm doing is on-landing 360Ys into a combo to finish it. When you damage him enough, sometimes you'll get him in a stun state like this. Be aware you can hit his leg with the scythe and you'll recoil off it, wasting time, which is really annoying. And note that he pounds the ground 3 times before he leaves his arm vulnerable. On the 3rd time, hop in and then hit him with a combo. You'll notice I think I did YY, in the air, YYX or something. XXY maybe, YYX or something. You've been playing the game, you probably can tell what I'm doing, you can tell me. Or don't tell me and just do it yourself and beat the boss. That's probably the best way forward. But yeah, just keep going until he dies. You don't have any life bars like on Razor's Edge, so you just have to guise it on, how bored you are, and eventually you'll fuck him up enough, and it'll trip to a checkpoint and to the next phase of the fight, which the next phase is horrible. It's not difficult, it's just horrible. I think it's going to happen soon. There we go. So as soon as you take both bits off him, he's going to get all Transformers on us and he's going to turn into this. So you want to be evasive and you want to be aggressive. The missiles lock on. The boss himself is going to do some crazy attacks, but all of it can be avoided, and I'm not doing a very good job of that, but a lot of the timings you're going to learn just through the sheer attrition of this fight. I died a lot on this encounter. For this move here, you want to run away so you can at least have a guise of where the lasers are so you can get out of the way of them. It's just not very fun. The camera doesn't help. The camera is, unfortunately, a victim of the geometry around it. As soon as you knock him down like this, he's going to go into this aggressive state and he's going to start trying to run you over. You might be thinking, Jesus Christ, Chris, your life is low. Well, it's okay, guys, because this move he's doing now, if he touches you, you die. I've had almost full life and this move kills you. And the worst part about it is it has a wicked tracking, so it follows you, and even when you try and get out of the way, it still clips you. So you'll notice one really good technique of getting through it is using the iframes from the on-landing 360Y. Not only does it do damage to the wheel and end this fight quite quick, but it also keeps you safe, and stuff like that. You cannot do what I just did any other way, because you don't have enough invulnerability. You'll just get completely shit-fisted. So bear that in mind, guys. And just keep on hitting him until it does this right now. Don't move. Stay exactly where you are and wait for the quick time. It's going to give you an input to slide. There's the slide input, and then you press attack and you finish him off. That boss is not hard, it's just a test of patience and bullshit. And hopefully there's less bullshit and more patience and you'll win. And then you've just got this big old gauntlet of enemies and a shit ton of mages, of the alchemists. So at this point you're probably quite comfortable with fighting them. If you're not, you're in for good practice time. But back on the Moses tangent. So when Moses came down the mountain, everybody's worshipping the great gold calf. He wasn't happy. And I don't think Moses was like, you're all foolish, you should, believe in the real God. Here's all these commandments, these awesome things I've just carried down this mountain, come and worship me and, all this kind of good stuff. Not worship me, because that's a sin, but come over here and stop looking at that stupid calf. But that wasn't enough for God, you see, and God said that, all of them should go out and kill people, essentially. And once again, I don't want to directly reference this because I don't know the proper quotation and I don't have it in front of me. I just want to give you the idea, the impression of this story. And for those people that don't believe me or say that I'm making this up, try and search for it, because the real story is much better than my interpretation. But essentially, God didn't forgive these people. There was no forgiveness for this, adultery. So he wanted a pretty heavy price. And if it wasn't, Moses kill all these people, it was, to atone you have to go and kill heathens, which was to go to a certain place and kill a ton of things, which, is fantastic. And when this kind of stuff happens and they go to places and kill a ton of people, they kill all the people, all the animals, and then they take the women as slaves and the girls as slaves, who are then used as breed mares and, raped and all sorts of fun stuff. Not nice topic at all, and not really much of a children's book, but there it is. So it just makes you wonder, man, like why we weren't told of those kind of things. And it's obvious why you weren't told, because if you were told that Moses, kind of a dickhead at times, wouldn't have been, quite so easy to believe the good parts. Because, look at Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is a fantastic sportsman. He's a genius when it comes to playing golf, but his personal life gets in the media, and we all look down on him and, feel sorry for him, even though he's a bazillionaire. And it's one of those things where one of his main places of income was sponsorships, and a lot of the sponsors were like, well, you don't want a person like you representing us. To which he immediately responds, that's racist. To which they immediately respond, no, I didn't mean that, I meant, an adulterer. But it's crazy when you see the dark with the light. It blurs the line. You can't just blindly follow it. And it's the same with a lot of stuff. Like Moses, I always thought he was a chill dude. Turns out, a bit of a dick at times. And I believe that, I'm a dick at times. Everyone's a dick at times. Even women are. Though they don't have one. It's just, why are we never told this stuff? I was talking to someone who was religious, hasn't even read the Bible, didn't even know this story. And I'm like, I want to read more of this stuff just so I can be like, have you heard this? This is my next best part. Like a lot of stuff. And a lot of people's examples and excuses for this kind of, story not being widespread is it's Old Testament, which I'm not too sure if this is Old Testament, so don't quote me once again, guys. This is just a pretty, pointing out stories with not much, evidence to support it or anything. It's just, shooting the shit, shooting the breeze. But a lot of people will dismiss, some of the crazy ones as, oh, it's Old Testaments, they're just allegories, that's back when we were doing LSD and nobody really cared, and we just sat in a field for 4 hours staring at clouds and trying to chew through our cheeks. But then there's the New Testament, which, is the more recent writings. That's where Jesus is predominantly the star of the film. He's the John Travolta of the New Testament. But Jesus is another one of those guys with some interesting stories behind him. And a lot of questionable things. Like Adam and Eve in the Old Testament is, it's pretty crazy, it's pretty out there. It's one of the trippier tales that I quite enjoy. And it all stems from this notion of paradise, of perfection. We had perfection, we were offered temptation, and we chose to sacrifice that paradise for the prospect of something else, which in and of itself is a principle of human nature. That's what we always do. That's why stuff like that happens. It's to be human, to have the folly of making mistakes. Only problem is we get divine punishment, and such is born original sin. And original sin's a great one, because it didn't used to be called original sin. It was once called ancestral sin, but then somebody changed that, and I forget who it was. I think it was Augustine. But original sin's passed down in the most exotic of ways. It's almost like a parasite, which doesn't really sound like something what sin would be, because you can be put to death for sinning. So I would like to know where sin comes from, how to quantify it, and how exactly I can get it off myself with some soap and water. But it turns out it's a little bit more difficult than that. But thanks for watching and listening, guys. That's the end of the third part. We've got another boss fight coming up, which is the Regents of the Mask. He's not too bad though, with a couple of tricks that I learnt, and hopefully I'll be able to get you through that and continue to tell you some interesting tales of religious wars. So thank you, and you take care now.